Hi guys, this is Nat Geocast, and here with us today I have Team Monachus, who will talk us through the different reproductive strategies of faucets and how these relate to maternal life history traits. So guys, this is a really fascinating topic. Can you start telling us what sort of traits might mothers have that can have an impact on what strategy choose to adopt?
So the two major families of pinnipeds have evolved differently, with the need to forage at sea but give birth on land or ice. The otrids, which are fur seals and sea lions, have evolved a foraging cycle strategy, and the phocids, which are true seals, have evolved a fasting strategy, or as we will refer to them, income breeding strategy and a capital breeding strategy.
Although maternal reproductive effort in terrestrial mammals can be affected by diet, litter size, and the nature of parental care, maternal effort in pinnipeds is most likely influenced by the adaptive consequences of the spatio-temporal division between breeding and feeding, as well as the thermoregulatory demands of having to live in the ocean. Pinnipeds exhibit wide variation in body size, milk composition, lactation strategies, and the length of maternal care. The first thing I would like to discuss is the maternal body size hypothesis. The body is thought to have strongly influenced the evolution of pinniped lactation strategies through its effects on a number of traits. Most female phocids are both larger and have greater adipose stores per kilogram of body mass than female otorids. This theory predicts that large body size, coupled with large fat reserves and low mass specific metabolic rate, allows large phocid females to rely solely on previously stored energy throughout lactation. Larger phocids are then able to transfer their milk energy necessary to ensure pup survival in an abbreviated lactation period. In contrast, the smaller body sizes in harbor seals and most otorids limit them to a foraging cycle strategy. Previous studies indicate that the negative relationship between maternal mass and lactation length, and between maternal mass and the percentage of time spent at sea by females during lactation, are not recent adaptations, but are likely a result of phylogenetic history and evolutionary grade shift in lactation length. This likely occurred when phocids diverged from otorids. In fact, body size differences regulated foraging strategies and metabolic rates between phocids and otorids. The fat storage abilities of large phocids may have allowed them to exploit remote and patchy prey resources, and thus reduce the time spent feeding during lactation. It seems that body size had little adaptive influence on the lactation length of extant species, and instead, a shorter lactation period seems to have been selected through the pressure of terrestrial predators. So minimizing the relative milk energy expended over lactation is evolutionarily advantageous when breeding on pack ice. It has also been suggested that an early divergence in the mammary gland structure of phocids and otorids has been a key trait in pinniped lactation strategies.
Wow, this sounds really fascinating. Amy, can you tell me more on how the different lactation patterns of pinnipeds compare with respect to investment in offspring?
So maternal energy and nutrient investment can be divided into prenatal and postnatal investment. A study by Costa in 1991 compared neonatal and maternal mass for 10 otorids and 11 phocids. The results suggest that relative pup mass at parturition is a similar proportion of maternal mass for both groups. This is not totally unexpected, since the timing and patterning of fetal development is essentially the same in both families. However, weaning mass as an index of postnatal investment is strikingly different. Weaning mass masks fundamental differences in the duration of investment, changes in maternal mass and body composition of the pup at weaning. This variance in lactation periods and weaning mass are not predictors of maternal investment, as behavior or metabolic rates in pups may alter how efficiently they use maternally derived resources. Although phocids are weaned at an earlier age, they are not truly nutritionally independent at that time, as they rely on maternally derived energy, stored as blubber, for weeks or even months after weaning. In contrast, otorid pups are weaned much later and are not as reliant on stored reserves, maternally derived prior to weaning.
Okay, what about the reproductive strategies that different pinnipeds use?
So of the pinnipeds, phocids are generally considered to be capital breeders, though this generalization is not entirely true. The pups go through an intense weaning period where females lactate 40 to 60% fat milk, all from their own energy stores. In some phocids, this weaning period will be as short as 4 days, as seen in the hooded seal, or on average it can be as long as 2 to 3 weeks. The young then have to go through a post-weaning phase, fast, while they learn to gain nutrition by themselves using the fat reserves they gained while weaning. Some examples of capital breeders include monk seals, elephant seals, and leopard seals.
So now to talk about income breeding, which is the primary breeding strategy of the otarids. So income breeding involves an initial period where the mother stays on land with the newborn. This generally lasts about 2 to 10 days. The mother will then alternate her time between foraging at sea and feeding the pup on land. Generally, this will be split, so about 1 to 7 days feeding the pup and about 1 to 14 days foraging at sea. The shortest weaning time in the otarids is around 4 months, as seen in Antarctic and northern fur seals, and the longest is seen in the Galapagos fur seals, who will provision their pups for up to 3 years. This extended weaning period has led to unusual cases of pregnant females also looking after their newborn pups and their yearlings. The ringed, Caspian, and bearded and grey seals are all members of the Phocid family that demonstrate this breeding behaviour.
Okay, so you mentioned that there is more of a gradient of strategies employed by pinnipeds. Could you give our listeners a couple of examples?
So there is evidence for the phylogenetic dichotomy in reproductive strategies, but this mainly comes from comparisons of otarids with larger phocid species of more than 150 kilograms in body mass. Some seals can actually be intermediate breeders lying somewhere between the two extremes of capital and income breeding, and they seem to be able to change their behaviour depending on several factors such as habitat quality, body mass, and food availability. Given the distribution of female body masses among phocid species, it is likely that about half of the 18 species of Phocidae may forage during lactation, rather than solely employ the capital breeding strategy that phocids usually use. So the first example of an intermediate strategy that I'm going to talk about comes from the harbour seal. So harbour seals are a relatively small phocid and have exhibited a foraging cycle similar to otarids, but typically resemble other phocids in length of lactation, rate of mass gain in pups, and milk fat content. As harbour seals are among the smallest phocids and only slightly larger than most otarids, it seems likely that maternal size constrains the amount of energy they can store and rely on for lactation, depleting these reserves before their lactation period finishes. The second example I'm going to talk about is from the Weddell seal. They also employ an intermediate strategy, similar to harbour seals. However, in contrast to harbour seals, this is not a consequence of depleting energy stores due to lack of body mass and energy reserves. Their lactation period is one of the longest of any phocids, lasting 5 to 6 weeks, with consequently one of the highest energy requirements of a large phocid species. Therefore, lactating Weddell seals may take advantage of fluctuations in prey availability, matching their reproductive investment to local resource levels. Evidence has been suggested that larger females feed more during lactation than smaller females.
So we hope that from hearing us on this podcast and from just having us here, that you've learned that pinniped reproductive strategies lie along a gradient, with most phocids using a capital breeding strategy, most otarids using an income breeding strategy, and some small phocids using an intermediate strategy that lies somewhere between the two. We also hope that you've been enlightened about the interesting link between pinniped reproductive strategies and their maternal life history traits.
And that's us for today. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week for more fun phocid facts. Don't forget to follow our show, rate us 10 out of 10, and give us your seal of approval.